Hello, and welcome to this episode of Counsel Trends. I am Dr. Mercy Connors, and I'm here with the lovely Dr. Shanae Anderson, and we have a great topic for you today. We are actually going to be talking about TikTok, and specifically TikTok with adolescents and young adults. And I think that this is something that has kind of been talked a lot about, but of course, we want to actually see research on this. And so we found a meta-analysis about TikTok and adolescent mental health, and we think that this one is really good.
Do you have TikTok?
I do not.
I do not either.
Yeah. So some of this I was not understanding, but I think
we're showing our age a little bit here.
We are. But I do think it's very helpful so that you do understand. We don't have TikTok, so some of this stuff we may say that's incorrect, but it's obviously because we've never used the platform.
Yes.
So this article is called Scrolling Through Adolescents, a systematic review of the impact of TikTok on adolescent mental health. And this one is from European Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, and it came out in 2025. So this is a very recent article. One of the things that I loved at the beginning of this article is that it was describing adolescents and what they're going through. And so I'm going to read these two sentences because I feel like this was like the best description ever.
Yes.
Adolescence is marked by profound changes, both physiological and psychological, while deep brain rearrangements alongside pubertal development occur.
Development in puberty.
There we go. Adolescents face the difficult challenge of shaping their personality and building their future in an age filled with environmental and social stressors.
Yes.
And I just want us to take a minute and really understand that our kids are in a very different time than what we were in. So we do need to have some grace.
Yes.
They are growing up with things that we never grew up with. This is like, people who didn't have TV or didn't have radio growing up with their kids are now growing up with radio and TV. So this was a huge technological shift, and all of these kids have been born since then. So it's interesting because my kids do not know what TV is with commercials. Every time we are watching actual pure TV where it has commercials, they're like, "Mommy, can you skip through this?" And I'm like, no, honey, I cannot. Now they've kind of understood because now we watch, sports and stuff like that, so they understand that there are commercials. But, at the beginning, they did not understand that.
I hadn't even thought about that.
Yes. So that's what I'm talking about, is that there are things that our kids are going to be going through that we as adults are not familiar with or understanding, or we understand it in a very different way because our prefrontal cortex is already developed. We've lived a lot of life. They are still in that developmental stage. So again, I want to bring that to the forefront, that we've got to have some grace here.
Yes.
But I think that this study was very interesting. So it was looking at a meta-analysis. So it was taking all of the data.
All the research studies that have been done.
Yes, about TikTok specifically, and specifically mental health. Now, the other thing that I really like that they did is that they did not take in anything that was for somebody that was older than 19.
Right.
So we're very much looking at adolescents. So it was interesting that they really are talking about the importance here of understanding who is being targeted here.
Well, and I liked what they said about why they chose TikTok over, let's say, Instagram or some of the other ones that they're using. And they said that TikTok, for people who are unfamiliar with it like we are, is that other users on TikTok mostly interact with each other through user-generated videos where there is an endless, hard-to-anticipate flow of auto-looped videos to swipe through. So it prompts high level of engagement and commitment, or what they call flow experience. And so it's not about social interaction per se, like you might do on X or Facebook or something like that. This is just constant looping of videos.
Right. And I've heard from other people, that I have heard who use TikTok, is that sometimes you will get into this point where you are using TikTok for 3 hours consecutively.
Oh, I have a patient that was using it for 12 hours consecutively.
And not realizing that time has passed. So again, it's a very interesting, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But one of the things that I found very, very interesting here was how much TikTok was being used.
Yes.
And it was saying that, I found it was somewhere around here, here it is. In one of the studies, 62% of the sample had used it for 1.4 hours to 2 hours a day. So this is being used a lot. The other thing that I wanted to bring up to everybody is that in any of these studies, they couldn't have control groups.
Right, because there is no teenager not using it.
Because they couldn't find teenagers not using it, which again to me just shows how pervasive this really is.
Right.
So very, very interesting. Now, according to some of these research articles, TikTok can be used passively, where you were talking about that flow, where you're just watching the content over and over again.
Scrolling.
Yes, doom
for
scrolling.
hours at a time.
Yes. Or it can be used for actual creation.
Yes.
So they can actually use the app to create their own content. And that actually showed a difference in how TikTokers were using it and how it was affecting their mental health.
Yes, I thought that was so interesting.
So what they were seeing is that TikTokers that were using it for passivity, who were just on there just consuming the content, had lower mental health scores. But those that were actually using it to create and to be creative was a little bit more positive.
What do you think that's about?
I think it has to do with engagement. I think it has to do with the person is engaging and creating and learning and thinking through things. Because think about that. When you're creating a video, I mean, you're problem solving most of the time or learning how a tool works. Or
I think that you are so optimistic.
Okay,
because the teens I know that are making these videos, it's about let me show off my dancing skills or let me do something from what I've seen again. And my population is very skewed working with teenagers with significant mental health issues, that so much of it is really about self and self-centeredness and look at how fabulous I look and how wonderful I am.
Now, they do bring that up.
Which I'm wondering if I'm going to be making these things, I think that the motivation is going to be different, that it's more of like, watch me. And I think somebody who has a desire to be watched is going to have different psychological structures and issues than somebody who's bored and is just doom scrolling all day.
Yeah, but I also do think you've got those creative people that are just really trying to learn and trying to figure out what are people interested in, and is my art form, whatever it may be, an interesting thing. And I mean, obviously, there are some people that are even using this to increase their businesses. Like there have been different products that have used TikTok. There have been different services that have used TikTok. I know a lot of counselors are on TikTok and they're explaining, here's what I'm talking about, here's my services, here's what, and because these adolescents and these young adults are using this so highly.
One of the dangers that we know that we see all over TikTok is that there are a lot of teenagers that are going on and talking about what they believe are their mental health struggles.
Yes.
Which can be both helpful in that they get a support system, but we know that there has been an increase of a lot of teens self-diagnosing, the contagion factor. They were saying there is a spreading, this one was wild to me, a spreading of functional neurological symptom disorders.
Yes.
Which is wild because I have a patient who has a functional neurological disorder and it makes her life very difficult. And so it's interesting. It's almost like, let me find the most extreme disorder, such as like they're using a lot of dissociative identity disorder or multiple personality disorder. It's like, let me demonstrate what I think is the most severe pathology. And let me video myself having tics or having these dissociative switching and things like that, which is wild to me.
Yeah. Well, and I think that this too is like, when we talk about TikTok, this is a wide range of people and individuals and how they're using it. Some are using it for positivity. Some are using it for support. Some are using it for negative things.
Yes.
But
context, that's what you're talking about.
Yes,
it's the context.
How are you utilizing it? The other
key.
thing I found very interesting is they are seeing what's called problematic TikTok use or TikTok addiction or social media addiction that is increasing, obviously, because of the use of this. I mean, when you talk about adolescents, most adolescents are on some type of social media. So it's really, really interesting that they were seeing that the predictors of risk of a social media addiction is time spent on a smartphone and TikTok. So it's showing an indication that there is something with that specific app, but also other apps as well. We're not,
But I do think one of the things they noted is that the context is so important that people, it's not just how much time you're spending on it. It's about looking why, what's going on, what are you doing with it? Yes. So important.
Yes. And it's interesting too, because one of the things that I found very interesting was linked to memory loss. And I wondered about this. So there are times when I'm not on TikTok, but I do Facebook from time to time, and I do not realize that time is passing. Not only do I not realize that time is passing, but I don't always remember what I was looking at or what I was reading.
Which they're talking about in the study. They call this the flow experience.
Yes.
And they say that it's kind of like being in the zone, that there's higher concentration. But yet I wonder, when I hear people that get so absorbed in something that they lose time, they have memory distortions, to me, that sounds dissociative.
Yes, it does.
And
definitely.
we know dissociation doesn't necessarily have to occur in response to trauma, although it usually does.
Yes.
But absorption dissociation is a very unique phenomenon that we all can engage in. Like, how many times have you driven maybe for a really long time?
Yep.
And you're just kind of like zoning as you're driving. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I just missed my exit.
Yep.
Or you're sitting watching a movie and you're so engaged and you're eating. Next thing you know, oh my gosh, I ate a whole bag of chips. How did that happen?
Yes.
Things like that can happen where we get so fixated. But what process is that? And is that healthy?
That I was just about to say, how positive or negative is that for your mental health?
And I think we may want to examine maybe something like that in one of our council trends and see if we can get some more information on that, because I think it's important.
Yes, I think it's really important. And I think that would be a good one for a follow-up of this one, to really just show what are some of the mental health mechanics that are happening when we are engaging to this high level with social media.
Yes.
Some of the other things that they were talking about that the TikTok use disorder or problematic TikTok use is also linked with depression, anxiety, and stress. And some of that I also wonder with the stress part is I've lost like 2 hours of time. Now I haven't done my I haven't done my homework. I'm wondering if some of it is that. But I could definitely see with certain types of content, you could definitely become more anxiety filled or depression filled.
Well, and one of the things it talks about even further on is how it ties into body image issues.
Yes.
And I have one patient in particular, her eating disorder was very extreme and severe, and she was struggling so much. And she actually went off social media, which was primarily TikTok and then Instagram, because they have like anorexia sites that we're not going to talk about today. But, and I'm telling you, it was a game changer for her recovery, because if you're constantly looking at people that are maybe putting content on about, oh, look at how skinny I am, I lost another 3 pounds, and really focusing on distorted body types.
Yes.
It really can feed that disordered body image and eating disorders.
Yes, and I think one of the things that, they didn't talk about this is boundaries. Like, is there some type of boundary that can be put on TikTok use or any type of social media use that could be very, very beneficial? I know I have an app on my phone that allows me to utilize Facebook and Instagram for only 1 hour.
Really?
A day. 1 hour. And it literally shuts off the app. I cannot get back into it.
See, I'll occasionally go on social media, but what I am kind of obsessed with right now, I think, which is like maybe the adult version of TikTok, is YouTube.
Yes.
And they have their shorts.
Yes.
And I will watch a lot of shorts, and it may be pastors talking. It may be different things. I'll sometimes watch psychologists talking about things.
Yep.
But I can sit there and watch for a really long time.
Yep.
And it's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I spent an hour and a half doing this.
Yes. But are you learning? Is
That's
it
a question.
is it passive or is it engaged?
Well, it's passive in that I'm just watching. But something that I'm thinking about is that it is actually almost self-fulfilling, that there is this confirmation bias that I think I like to listen to things that confirm my perspective and my bias. Because I'm thinking when something comes on that I'm like, this is stupid, or I don't agree with this, I will get rid of it.
Yes.
So
exactly.
I think, oh, this is lovely. Now I'm thinking about this. It's creating like this echo chamber in my mind.
Yep.
And I'm wondering about the consequences of that.
Yes, because then you're not hearing the other perspective. You're not hearing the other arguments.
Right.
And those arguments may have some valid points.
Of course they do.
But not only that, but if they do have valid points, then you have to be able to have a counter argument to that.
And I need to be more focused and attention and be willing to learn.
Yes.
Which I will do when I'm not listening to the shorts. So sometimes I will listen to a whole video of maybe 30 minutes to an hour or longer.
Right.
And I'm learning there. But I do notice with the shorts, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like
It's
this
just going.
mindless.
It's just going.
Right.
Yes. Yes. And I don't know. I mean, when I'm on YouTube, I don't ever do the shorts. I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, I knew that there was a thing. Right. Now another addiction I need to be a part of. But the other thing I think we need to think about here is the importance of understanding that there needs to be limits.
Yes. And boundaries around it.
And not just limits that a person takes. I think talking to a teenager about limiting their use is really important, but also as a parent.
Oh, for sure.
Sometimes these kids, I'm going to say most of the time these kids are not able to limit themselves.
Well, I'm wondering, are the parents able to limit themselves too?
Well, and that's where, again, you've got to model this for them. Like I said, I have an app that tells me when it's 1 hour. I get 1 hour a day, and that's it. And you know what? I've been very, very good about that. I literally am like, okay, done. All right, starting on to something else. Now, the other thing is that I'm very, very conscious of that. And so I'll be like, I only go on for like 3 minutes, and then I'll get off of it, because I'm looking for something that I was looking for, or I wanted to check my messages or something like that. So I'll do that very, very quickly.
But you also have a fully formed brain.
This is true.
With a prefrontal cortex that is able to regulate.
Yes.
And thus the importance, you're right, of parents being able to do that, but are parents regulating themselves to set the boundaries on their kids? And they have to set the boundaries with themselves first.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And if we're looking at what I'm doing on YouTube, I can only imagine what parents are doing.
Right. But another thing that we got to talk about too is cyberbullying, because I know that's been another thing that has been coming up a lot in the research, is that these kids really are engaging in or being engaged on. That's not the right word for that, but being offended on. Yes. And we have to be aware that is happening. And that is very, very detrimental. I know just recently here in our area, we had a young girl commit suicide because of cyberbullying. Right. So it's a really important thing. So not only do we need them to limit their use because it's just good for their overall mental health, but you need to be aware that some really negative stuff is coming through this, that kids are being bullied through this, and you really need to know what your teen is looking at. The other thing I want to talk about, too, that I thought was very interesting was identity theft.
Yeah, that surprised me that got thrown up there, too.
So I saw this thing. I think it was Aubrey who sent this to me. Aubrey's our producer. And she showed me this video of a little kid.
Oh.
And it showed they used AI for the child to get older to talk about how if you put pictures on Facebook or on these social media platforms, that it is much easier to steal their identity later on in life, because not only can they get their likenesses, but they can also get their voices. And so what some people are doing is actually getting the voice of the individual and then calling the parent and using the voice to say, I have been kidnapped, you need to send me money so that I can get out of the kidnapping. Stuff like that, which is just crazy, but that's all AI. So again, thinking about it in this way, that it's not just what's being consumed, but what can also happen in the future.
Right. Well, and then we don't have to spend time here at all, but of just how the government wanted to get rid of TikTok, that it was owned by China. I mean, there's so much that's tied to that. But I think one of the things I know that they attempt to do is hold a certain age limit.
Yes.
And that maybe some of this needs to be delayed, but I think kids are going to do it anyways.
Yes. Well, and I think too that we're seeing some of the government agencies step in. I know here in Virginia, you're not allowed to have your phone during your school day, which
I think is great.
I think that's wonderful.
Yes.
I don't know why they had their phones in the first place, but I do think that that's very important. But again, law and government is always behind technology, because you can't ever predict what technology is going to do. But I do think that there are some ways that you can be prepared. And as parents, you may have to step in and put your own laws down.
Well, and I think one of the things I liked about the article is really recognizing that there's not like one clear answer that like TikTok is bad for everybody. I mean, it's not saying that at all.
No, it's not.
That there's pros and cons to social media and TikTok as well. And that you really need to know your child. You need to know what some of their risk factors are.
Absolutely.
For example, like my son, he's got ADD, and he would get caught sometimes in video gaming, and trying to pull him off was next to impossible, because he would kind of get in that zone.
Yep.
And so we really had to address that, because I knew that he had those issues.
Yes.
And so parents need to recognize, if you've got a child who is depressed already, they may spend hours doom scrolling, and that cannot happen.
Yep.
And so I know a lot of parents are telling kids, you can't have your phone in your room.
Yes.
You
Yep.
can only use your phone under supervision, or it's got to be, in charging in the family room by 8 p.m. or different things.
Yes.
To set parameters.
No, and I think that's right. And then not only set the parameters, but keep the parameters.
Yes.
So there does have to be consequences to not doing the things that they are supposed to do, because I think that that's really important. But then again, hey, if you're making your kid charge it in the living room at 8 p.m., guess what? You need to be charging it at 8 p.m. in the living room as well. And that's just consistency, but also it's good modeling.
It is good parenting.
It's very good parenting. So we hope that you enjoyed this topic. Please give us a like if you did. Also, comment on this, and we would like to know your thoughts. What are some of the things that you're seeing? Also, if you have any other topics that you would like us to talk about, please let us know. And please note that we love being a part of your life.